We can't confuse employee satisfaction with employee engagement. They're not the same. Employee satisfaction, just like it says, is how satisfied am I with my job? Do I like my pay? Do I like my boss? Do I like my benefits package? Do I like my coworkers? Keeping someone happy. It's not a short list. On the other hand, employee engagement is quite different. It isn't affected by any of those things. It's only driven by two factors. According to Frederick Hertzberg's research, it's progress and it's purpose, and it's only those two things.
Chris, why are so many leaders concerned about engaging teams in a remote work environment?
I think maybe for the same reason we chose to do this the way we did.
Right.
Instead of on Zoom, it would have been a little more convenient, right? There's something about a natural, three-dimensional, authentic environment that really matters to people. And if I'm a leader who feels like one of my strengths, and maybe one of the reasons I'm a leader in the first place is because of my ability to relate and connect with people and motivate them, then once you put me in a virtual environment, I feel like I'm leading maybe with one hand tied behind my back.
From your article in CFO, I take it you don't feel this is the real problem with engagement in a virtual environment.
Not with engagement. I think it is a big deal with employee satisfaction. Human interaction and that human chemistry really matters. And employee satisfaction is important right now, especially with the war on talent. But when it comes to engagement, when it comes to the way in which people engage in the work, as a leader, it has much more to do with how you structure the work than how they actually feel about you as the leader.
How do I structure the work as a leader? What does that mean?
Go back to the two components of engagement, progress and purpose. In terms of how I structure the work, is there a critical objective within the body of work that the team is responsible for that meets those two criteria? In other words, is there one aspect of the work that feels like a really high-stakes, winnable game?
And while that's a significant challenge, you would argue it's not significantly more challenging in a virtual environment. It's more about the work than the environment.
That's exactly right. And this isn't the type of thing where you have to trust the research. Your own experience will validate this. If you go to a time in your life where you felt like you were the most engaged at work, I can promise you at that moment, two things were present. You were winning and it was a big deal. We do this in keynotes. We'll have 1,000 people in an audience and I'll have everybody turn to the neighbor next to them and just tell your neighbor where you were at work when you were most lit up, when you couldn't wait to get out of bed in the morning. And it's fascinating. The first thing after they've done processing, the first thing I'll ask them is about all the elements of satisfaction. And what they'll recognize is, yeah, they may or may not have been making good money. They may or may not have actually liked their boss. They may or may not have had a best friend at work or liked their work conditions or their benefits package. There won't be any statistical correlation between those elements that absolutely show up in satisfaction and the one time in their life when they were most engaged. But the thing that shows up every time is progress and purpose. We were winning at something and it was a big deal.
Chris, you know what's so interesting? I was tracking with you intellectually, but it wasn't until I remembered an experience where I was in an environment where both of these elements were present. We were making progress and it felt purposeful. So what would you say to somebody who understands this intellectually, but is struggling to feel it emotionally?
If I'm struggling with this emotionally, it's probably because I'm thinking too much about myself. I'm probably a little insecure. And I can't think of a time in a person's life, particularly a new leader, when you're any more insecure. We were talking about this before. First time you take over a team, do they think I ought to be the leader? Do I think I ought to be the leader, right? And these feelings of insecurity, they are not your friends when it comes to leading a team. Stephen Covey, I think, created a really powerful paradigm shift for leaders on this point. He'd engage them in a brainstorming exercise on how to create a world-class tomato. So you get groups of senior leaders and they're having a little bit of fun. They're competing with each other. And each table is trying to come up with this super list of things they would do to grow a world-class tomato. And after everybody had shared their results, he would ask 2 questions. They would know the answer to these 2 questions. And for some, it really affected them. Here was the question. The first question: with all that you've done to create this, with the greenhouses and the stalks and the fertilizers, can you guarantee that the tomato will grow? And they knew the answer. Every table would say, no, we cannot guarantee that the tomato would grow. But it was the second question that got him. And he would just ask why. And they all knew the answer. The answer was because the life is in the seed. Just like the farmer, my job as a leader ultimately is all about creating the conditions for growth. I don't make the seed grow. And if you think about leadership that way, it stops being all about you as the leader.